Hey Sam Crack, can you point me in the direction of some bloke giving out the keys and title to his car so I can get one of those too? If you didn't catch our last episode, Scott, a super generous guy, gave me this BMW totally free, willingly, and dare I even say enthusiastically.
This car is your problem.
Sure, there seems to be some skeptics, but if you look at this from Scott's perspective, it's not too crazy of an idea. Scott, like a lot of people, depends on his car to get him places, specifically work. It's clear Scott drives quite a bit, given the 185,000 miles on this car, so logic tells us reliability is of a top priority. Scott serviced this car mainly at the dealer, and when a car gets older and needs more attention, the service bills might not necessarily be more expensive, but they're more frequent, so it ends up being more expensive. The last service bill was actually left in the car. It was around 180,000 miles for front shock replacements, and that cost nearly $2,000. What would it have cost at the dealer to replace the valve cover gasket that Alex and I did in his garage? We spent right around $450 in parts, but buying through the dealer with labor on top of that, Scott would have likely spent at least a couple thousand just to rectify these few issues, and as you're about to see, they would have quoted for even more repairs.
Now, I definitely think Scott made the right decision not trading this car in for the $1,500, even considering its mechanical issues and high mileage, but I'm obviously very biased. And anytime I think of a BMW with near 200,000 miles, the first thing that pops into my head is a ticking time bomb. So what's not to say that I wasn't just gifted a car that could cost me a few thousand in the short term and several thousand in the long run. To figure out the answer to that question, while I was in Illinois, I took the car to a good friend of mine, OJ Lopez, over at Fluid Motor Union. OJ was once one of the youngest BMW master techs in the country. He's been building and repairing BMW since the beginning of his automotive career, and he's very familiar with all the common failure points on this platform.
Also, Alex from Legit Street Cars, who helped me repair the BMW, gave it a good look through when we were replacing the valve cover. He's an ex-Mercedes master tech, so we'll hear from two solid sources the overall condition of the free BMW.
I think you'll be quite surprised to hear what OJ found and had to say about our free BMW. But before we travel to Fluid Motor Union, I got to give a shout out to the guys over at Coupe for their new Commuter 2 speaker. They've improved upon the design of their first commuter by offering a speaker that separates so you can have stereo 360 sound wherever you go. The fully wireless Commuter 2's built-in battery will give you about 7 hours of listening time. It's water and splash resistant, got a microphone built in so you can make and take calls on the fly. And of course, it sounds incredible, especially considering that Cove is going to give you 60% off right now if you use code SC60 when you visit my link down in the description box below. Now, I got to give a huge thanks to Cove for not only pumping some tunes into my barn, but for also sponsoring this video.
All right, so we're just following all these vacuum lines and tubes everywhere. Found one of them that's a little frayed, so that could definitely be leaking some air. And the one right next to it, a little bit better, not that bad. But yeah, I think this is gonna create a little bit of an issue here. You can kind of feel that it's broken too.
So basically what Alex is doing is, this is one part of our vacuum system here. These hoses that run all the way down there are the frayed ones he just showed you. So he's gonna plug this. We're gonna send some air through the lines here and see if we can feel it coming out of the other line. That would be very indicative that that's where our problem is.
I'm pressuring it, right?
I don't feel anything.
I can hear a little something. Sounds like a dying cow. It's talking to us and telling us where it's broken.
It's coming from back here.
Yeah. It's like a train, hang on.
Yeah, I don't feel there's anything coming out of the chafe lines though.
All right. All right, let's see what we can see as far as anything obvious. I gotta say, there are a ton of just vacuum lines everywhere, just so many points of failure. And then any kind of oil that gets in here can eventually make this really mushy, you know? But it seems okay. Yeah, it's got new sway bar links. Let's see. Tie rods seem good. All right, let's see if this, that's tight, man. Some of these we gotta actually pull down on, like that.
Ooh, a little bit of oil leaking in there. You think?
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's definitely got a lot of oil leaks. Oil pan for sure, and then it's either a rear main seal or something right above it is leaking a ton of oil. I mean, we have drips here live. And then something else I noticed, we do have some oil coming from the charge pipes from the intercooler, but at 180,000 mile twin turbo car, it's pretty normal to see something like that. So overall, I mean, this is the kind of car you just check the oil on because this looks like a ton of work. But for a free car, not bad.
First time I saw you, I knew all the time. It was something in the air tonight, in the way you looked at me.
All right, OJ, I am a cheap Ferrari guy. When I see a 456, I know that is one of the most, let's call it budget or cheapest Ferraris you can get, but
Underappreciated, maybe.
underappreciated, okay. This one looks like it's really in for quite the job. What are you doing to it, and what sort of other issues do you run in on these 456s? Because even though you can pick them up cheap, I think that
They're a bit of a handful.
Yeah.
A bit of a handful. This one, the owner has already put some money into doing some of the bigger issues. Obviously, timing belts, something you need to take care of almost every Ferrari. But that leads into the valve stem seals, leak into the valves, and that creates a smoking issue. So that was taken care of before it got here. That issue actually turned into his catalytic converters failing, and he didn't know why. We rectified that issue after the fact, but since he's been putting this money in to more or less restore this car, we're now at the point where the cosmetic stuff, the stuff that's been bothering him in the car, is going to be taken care of. So the dash is kind of coming back in areas. People are probably familiar with the sticky buttons. Unfortunately, the only way to get a lot of those buttons out is through the back side of the dash. So what you see here is mid-process of the buttons being sent out, waiting for the buttons to return after the treatment. So I wouldn't say that the way they come, like from Ferrari, like is especially attractive. But I think this could be a cool car if set up right. I definitely would pick one up if I came across one that needed, valve steels or something along those lines. So. The suspension system is also problematic on these cars. We do a lot of shock replacement, so there are definitely some really expensive issues that could put these cars into a price range where someone could pick them up for cheap. But that being said, they usually require expensive parts to get them going again.
All right, OJ, so Alex and I, in his garage, did one major repair. The valve cover was leaking into the spark plug holes, and the coil packs were soaking wet. So, brand new valve cover and valve cover gasket. Our valve cover is also cracked.
Now, was that valve cover gasket, would you say it was the original? I mean, I'd imagine it got replaced before.
So this is funny. It was beautiful. It wasn't cracked and dried out or anything like that. So, if I had to guess, no, it was not the original.
Most likely replaced at one point. Maybe the valve cover was cracked that was causing the majority of the leak. Quite a bit of rust on the wastegate arms. So to me, that would say they're most likely original turbos, which I'd be surprised about, given the warranty nature of what was going on and them rattling. They actually sounded pretty good too. Did you notice any?
So when you start the car up dead cold,
Little rattle?
There is a rattle, yes.
But it goes away.
Very quickly. 2-3 seconds gone.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Usually they'll rattle quite a bit when they're warmed up, the worn ones. But yeah, these look original. Car drives pretty good.
Really good.
Boost comes on, everything.
So okay, I had a manual one several years ago, and I remember being faster. So Alex found some hoses, which I could show them to you in the engine bay. They don't look frayed. They look frayed, but they don't look broken through to me. But would that cause a boost problem that you wouldn't have a code, but you would feel a power difference?
Yeah, because these cars use a MAP sensor, like a manifold pressure sensor, and they basically read off of two sensors, one on the intake charge pipe and one on the manifold. It's calculating its cylinder filling that way. Mm-hmm. If what's coming in matches kind of the two, but it's just a little bit lower. The car doesn't necessarily tell you that, there's a problem if it's, kind of close, and it considers kind of close. You could be down, 3-4 psi. Typically with a boost leak, especially since this system's vacuum controlled, and I shouldn't really call it a boost leak, with a vacuum leak where it's not, the wastegates aren't being actuated right, you'll have like an all or nothing situation. But I have ran into a few issues where vacuum lines collapse intermittently, the solenoid valves don't activate, and they don't throw faults. It's faulted in a way where it still sees the right resistance, so it's not triggering a fault message, but it's just not working, and you kind of have to get it into the right load range. So if you kind of feel like the power's not there, a good way to kind of make it mad is to throw it in a really high gear. Throw it in fourth gear, but try to get it as low as you can before it wants to downshift, and just hammer it. Demand for boost usually will, it'll know something's wrong, and it might throw the little half engine fault there. That'll give you at least a fault to follow,
And the truth is, a lot of the missing fasteners, my fault. I'll blame a 1 or 2 on Alex too, but yeah, they were all there.
They're always missing.
Yeah.
I'm surprised if I see them on a car.
Here we go. Let's see.
They usually go missing at the dealer. Looks like you guys did a good job on the valve cover gasket, though.
Thank you. Thank you. We tried.
Everything looks good.
It's funny, on the video, Alex, he ripped most of it off, and I was just kind of the side guy. Then he went to work, and I swear to you, OJ, I put 98% of this back. So, that's the tough part, is putting it back, right?
No, I'd agree with you on that. But
so here, I wanted to show you really quick. These down here, those are the chafed lines. So these two that run into kind of, some sort of insulated hose there, they didn't look broken all the way through, but that's what Alex discovered. And I don't know if these would cause a boost leak, but...
So they wouldn't cause a boost leak, they cause a vacuum leak. Okay. Although it would manifest itself in like a similar symptom. BMW, for safety reasons, went with a wastegate that's controlled via vacuum, so that way in the event that the wastegate fails or the system fails, you're not over boosting the engine. It just releases boost. So they want vacuum controlled for safety reasons. So good and bad. The good is obviously the safety issue. The bad is it kind of makes it a little harder to diagnose like a issue where you're not getting full boost, especially if you have a line that looks okay but it's collapsed internally, so the vacuum shuts the line under when it has its demand, and that can make it a little hard to trigger or hard to figure out, especially if you use something like a smoke machine where it pressurizes the system. You're not going to see the issue when it's pressurized. You're going to see it when it's under full vacuum, so it might not manifest itself with a smoke test. Pretty typical oil pan leak here. Very common on these. It's a more involved job. The way we like to do it is we hang the engine. So usually you need a lift, support the engine across the strut towers, and pull the subframe so that way you can get all the bolts out. Adds a little time because it's an XI, but it's nothing crazy. The first thing we do when we see something like this, oil is always going to come from the topmost spot, and if you've got a massive oil leak up top, valve cover gasket, it can make this over time look like this. So you always got to start from the top and work your way down if you're trying to do this budget wise. You could always replace every gasket on the engine, but sometimes you're creating a problem by opening it up, especially when you think about you had to replace the valve cover gasket, right? But it's plastic. Even though it's a thermoplastic, it shrinks over time with heat cycles, so that just by nature won't have as good of a seal as when it was new, right? So sometimes just by opening up the stuff, you create a weakness in that area that can leak easier down the road. So we always start up top. Where's the highest oil leak? Start with that guy, and then eliminate them all the way down. So when I see this, the first thing I'd say to somebody is like, clean it off, see where it's actually coming from. But knowing that the valve cover gasket was leaking, I'd say that was probably a good start, you know? That's pretty much what we do. Start with that, then monitor the leak, clean this all off, let's see how bad it is. How's the brakes feel? Really good. They actually feel good? Usually when you have a brake squeak on a BMW, like 9 times out of 10, BMW says to replace the rotor when they reach minimum spec. That's true, but the issue you run into is that if you are just outside of the spec when you're replacing it and then you do a pad slap more or less, you run into a situation where you start to create this ring. You see like the ring on the edge of the rotor? Bottom and top. That doesn't really it's not a surface for it to break on. And just like you've seen people fill up crystal glasses and then run their fingers on it, play musical notes. That's usually 9 times out of 10 the cause of a brake squeak on a BMW is the rotor touching the ring of the rotor that's been worn in there touching the pad surface. So when that happens, 2 things you could do: chamfer the pad, try to cut the surface down, but then you're making the brake surface uneven. So or replace the
rotor's not too expensive.
Yeah, they really aren't, not anymore. So what I wanted to check up here was front crank seal. You were talking about the rear main. The front crank can leak as well. A lot of times it'll manifest itself as an oil pan. Like people be confused by the two since they're so closely related. But the difference between how those leak is on a crank seal, you'll always see oil slinging upwards because it comes out around the crank seal and it will go up and sling on stuff higher up. Yours is completely dry. Little play here, but I don't think you're gonna feel it yet. You'll notice a crack inside that bushing. Yeah. That's the start of that, the bushing for the transfer case starting to go. They're kind of a pain in the butt because you've got to support the trans, aim it down, and then press it out. But if you're having, vibration issues into the car, kind of just a rough overall feeling, which I didn't feel, look here, type of deal. That's just starting to be to the point where it's like, that's how they begin to go, but it's not worth replacing. There you go.
All right, OJ, you've done a full inspection on the car, inside, out, underneath, everything. You're taking on a test drive.
I'm telling you, man, I'm looking for problems. I know that you want to make stuff interesting. This thing's solid. I'm really actually pretty impressed with this mileage. Like, this is one of the higher mileage, more put together cars that has come across. Now, if it had that oil leak the other day that was causing it to misfire, that might be a different story, but the fact that you took care of that and there's really not too much else going on with it, little stuff, cosmetic stuff, but most of the stuff is something that, a DIY guy could handle. This is a nice find.
All right, I've had a ton of fun here at Fluid Motor Union, OJ. I'm gonna hand you these keys. We're gonna come up with a game plan on the 335.
Doesn't need much, so it might be a good candidate for whatever you're thinking.
Well, I greatly appreciate your time going over it today and your expertise, and I look forward to possibly diving deeper into this or maybe something a little bit more exotic.
So what do you guys think? Overall, I'm amazed at the condition of this car as assessed by OJ and Alex. I normally be hesitant to modify the engine of a higher mileage car, but this is one of the best tuner platforms available. A few simple modifications would add around 100 horsepower to this 335. Let's just hope it doesn't add several thousand to our repair bills. Let me know in the comment section below if you think we should modify it, and what mods would you install? Be sure to follow Alex at Legit Street Cars, OJ and his crew over at Fluid Motor Union, and of course my Instagram page, where I might have already posted a picture of this BMW's first modification. And as always, I thank each and every one of you for watching today. I'll catch you very soon.